So is it just going to be a thing that we always get a classic Sonic game alongside modern Sonic games now, or... Yeah, Sonic Superstars. Who actually expected us to get another Sonic game so soon after Frontiers wrapped up its content updates? Like, yeah, I know classic Sonic is a completely different thing than modern Sonic, as classic games focus more on 2D, whereas modern has more focus on 3D. But I don't know. It just feels weird to have a classic game released like a month after Frontiers was concluded. Either way, I'm not complaining. I love classic Sonic. And the concept behind Superstars is really cool. Like, introducing multiplayer and abilities via the Chaos Emeralds are all gimmicks I've been wanting for years. I just kinda wish the game was better. It pains me to say the game is just okay. Like, the game peaks like way too early, and then it's just constant dips with like the occasional increase in quality. Plus, the game's launch was pretty bad. It's not the worst I've seen. I've literally seen games release early, but Superstars had all its DLC put up for free on the Steam store, and I am glad I stayed up for that launch because supposedly the DLC was quickly corrected and properly priced, like, what was it, like 10 minutes after the launch? But yeah, it's still crazy how I was able to get the comic book skins for free because those skins were only available through like Kroger for whatever reason. And I mean, like, they are arguably like the best skins you can get through the DLC. I guess the rabbit skin is pretty cool too because of the context behind it. You know, as this was initially the design Sonic was going to have before he got his iconic hedgehog appearance. Oh yeah, you can't forget about the Lego skins. I pre-ordered the game and got the digital deluxe edition, so I was guaranteed the Lego Eggman skin as well as the Lego Fun Pack, which gave me skins for Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. All of those skins give the characters their modern appearance, which is funny to have in a classic game. But I was confused about the Lego Sonic skin, as that was the one advertised in its like own trailer, but despite that, it was nowhere to be seen. That was until all the DLC became free and I was just able to pick up the Lego Sonic skin. I'm still not entirely sure if I had to pay for it or if it was always free, but either way, it's still funny that you can play a classic game where all the main playable characters and the main antagonist have their modern appearance. There's also like the modern Amy skin, which was given out for free to people who subscribed to the Superstars email, and it like wasn't initially available for Steam until, what was it, like a few days before the game launched. And if you didn't get it through email, you could always spend $2 to get a skin in your Sonic the Hedgehog game. Okay, I spent a lot more time talking about the game's terrible launch, and I haven't even talked about the game yet. So this game did a similar thing to Sonic Frontiers, where they had a bunch of prologue media released prior to the game, and hey, we got some really nice animations yet again. It was weird to see characters like clearly talking, yet are completely silent. Robotnik is easily the worst of them. But yeah, this game has a pretty solid story for classic Sonic standards. Sure, I had to look up on the wiki to figure out a few things going on, but I blame that on my stupidity and not on the game. I'm just happy to see Fane back, as he was always a pretty cool character. I wish he wasn't limited to the classic games. Getting another new character that is seemingly sticking around, as she was kind of hinted at during a Tales Tube episode, is cool too. Her name is Trip. I won't talk about her till later, because the game is still somewhat new, so you know, spoilers. The levels are a real mixed bag for me. Like, we got some really good levels. Bridge Island, Speed Jungle, and Pinball Carnival was pretty fun. But we also have levels like Sky Temple and Press Factory. These levels also went for a different approach, whereas each level had like one central gimmick that it focused on. And yeah, I know Classic Sonic occasionally did that, but I felt like this was like really forced. Like, I did not care for Press Factory Act 2's ticking time bomb mechanic. And surprisingly, I didn't like Cyberstation's mechanic of switching the gameplay styles. The mouse was boring, the octopus was finicky, and the rocket was tedious, and it like actually made my eyes hurt. And I gave praise to Speed Jungle, but the second act gimmick of like the fog with like the butterflies, it really sucked. It was tolerable, but multiplayer made it even worse, because it only gives it to one player, so that means the other player is just left behind in the dark. That's another thing, that level just forces you to slow down. But now that I really think about it, just this entire game just feels slow. They pretty much got a one-to-one recreation of classic physics and momentum, but the game still feels slow. And that's unfortunate when the whole appeal of Sonic games, especially the classic ones, are to replay the levels so you can perfect it, and have these insanely fast and smooth runs through the different zones. But something about Superstars just feels slow. Like, Sometimes they force you to run through these loops several times or grab onto hooks or something. Speaking of the game feeling slow, the boss fights, oh god, the boss fights. Okay, so classic Sonic games usually knock it out of the park with the bosses. They typically take an idea from the act, then mix it into the boss fight. Or sometimes they'll just make the boss fight into the theme. But Superstars? Somehow these are some of, if not the worst boss fights in a Sonic game. Like sure, they follow the classic game tradition of fitting the theme or taking a gimmick from the act, but they're just such a pain to play through. These fights are preposterously slow, and it's filled with lots of segments where you just can't deal damage. The first fight surprisingly does this, and I'm guessing it was done simply because if they were vulnerable for too long, you could defeat them in a single cycle, and the reason that could potentially be a possibility is because one of the new abilities, Avatar. Avatar creates a wave of clones, which is essentially a screen wipe, and since its ability can be used during boss fights, that means you can activate it and get a bunch of hits in without really needing to do anything. Sure, some fights kind of negate this as they are invulnerable for too long, or only have specific weak points, such as the fight in Speed Jungle or fight in Press Factory. Honestly, Avatar is really the only ability that has potential in boss fights. Sure, Bullet and Slow have their moments, but Avatar really does most of the work. I guess this is probably a good time to talk about one of the main selling points of this game. The abilities actually work really well. The way they work within the levels are nearly perfect, as you can use them whenever you want, but you're also told when you should use them, which gives you more of a reason to replay the levels, as there may be some new areas you can explore now that you've unlocked a certain emerald. Bullet is easily the most broken, as you can gain an insane amount of height in a few button presses, and it's also like unlocked second, which makes it even more broken, as you don't really have to work hard for it. I mean, I guess you kind of have to work hard for them, because for whatever reason these special stages are like wildly inconsistent. Sometimes they're pretty easy, and then there can be that one single level that for whatever reason requires me to just pray that I get lucky enough to have the emerald get close to me. Like, no joke, I'd been stuck on a special stage for probably like 20 attempts. It could have just been a skill issue, but I got the next one first try, so that's really weird. There are a lot of other emeralds that focus mostly on movement, such as Water, Vision, and Ivy. Water allows more movement in water, the ability to climb up waterfalls, and even the invulnerability to being crushed. Ivy grows a plant from the ground that spawns some platforms to jump on, and Vision makes certain platforms, rings, and switches visible depending on where you use it. The Slow was very situational, as you were either forced to use it to go down a different route, or just make fast-moving platforms easier to navigate. The only downside I found to using Slow is that once you activate it, you're forced to use it till the ability ends. From what I've seen, there's no way to toggle the ability, so that can kind of make some segments extremely slow and boring. And for the final unique ability, it's called Extra. This could have been the most unique ability, but all they kind of came down to was just an extra attack. Like, it's cool to see the different characters get a different ability for Extra, but like, why couldn't these have just been built into the character already? The controllers literally use like 2 buttons. Okay, now that I'm done blabbering about the Emerald powers, the next thing I should probably ramble about is the second main selling point, the different playable characters. Different playable characters have been like a thing in classic Sonic games for a while, and now they've always had slightly different playstyles, with Sonic being the well-rounded basic character, Tails having flight, and Knuckles having a glide and wall climb ability. Oh, and he's red. Which reminds me of a certain other red-themed platformer. Rayman! Okay, wait, hold on, I'm getting off topic. That was until Mania, where Sonic got the amazing drop dash ability. Every character had access to the spin dash, plus an extra ability, so it was only fair that Sonic got a new ability. And this one is just a spin dash that doesn't require you to stop and charge. In Superstars, Sonic yet again keeps his drop dash. Tails and Knuckles play as you expect, but this is the first mainline classic Sonic game where Amy is a playable character. Yes, she was playable in Origins, no, I'm not buying the DLC. She definitely plays like a classic Sonic character. The double jump is cool and kind of necessary to make her feel unique, but the hammer swing is weird, because it's not like just a simple button press, it works like Sonic's drop dash. And like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's fine, I guess, but for whatever reason, she stops if you slow down too much. Okay, now we're gonna get into some spoiler stuff. I'll give you a few seconds to pause the video, go play Superstars, and, you know, just come back like 3 hours later. It's about time we talked about Superstar's worst kept secret, a 5th playable character. A lot of people thought we'd see Fane as a playable character because of his inclusion in the story. I also saw some people say Shadow, but I'm assuming they're joking, either that or they're stupid. But the real playable character was actually the new one introduced, Trip. She's pretty fun, I like her. She has a double jump like Amy, she can cling to walls like Knuckles, but she also has the unique ability of clinging to ceilings. She's also the only character aside from Sonic to get like an actual super form. Every other character stayed to just get superpowers and then they just get like an aura, but Trip becomes a sick-ass dragon that can fly and breathe fire. That's pretty unique as far as super transformations go. Speaking of unique, the music. No, not because the music is really all that unique, but the opposite. It isn't. And just like some of the boss fights, this game has some genuinely horrible music. Sure, there's some bangers in here. Unsurprisingly, T. Lopez is behind those ones. And then there's Jun Senoi. Oh boy, Jun Senoi. Bro has made some amazing songs for Sonic games before, but classic games has never been his strong suit. Next time you're going to bring Jun Senoi on board as lead composer, please tell him it's a modern Sonic game. I cannot stand listening to the same, so retro Genesis samples used to make these garbage songs. Like, please listen to this and tell me I'm wrong. Okay, let's wrap this review up. Final boss time. It sucks. It's probably the worst final boss we've had in years. The first phase is somewhat not really tolerable, but the second phase, I despise the second phase. Like, the boss is so bad, even the background hates it. It can't loop properly. And that's really unfortunate too, because the last act had such a cool idea of replaying the level in reverse. Sure, it wasn't done very well, but the boss had a chance to do something cool with it, and it literally doesn't. All it does is it just rebuilds the mech for the second phase. Like, this boss is easily my least favorite boss out of all the Sonic games I've played. And this bitch ain't far behind. Okay, so once the boss is dealt with, we get a nice little cutscene and unlock an extra mode with Trip as a playable character with redesigned levels to fit specifically for her. No, I'm not doing that. I wanted to like this game so much more than I did. Certain features like the battle mode I never had to mention had so much potential, and then they did nothing. Not to mention my hatred for it after I spent several hundred medals making a cool robot, only to use my Mechasonic DLC and lose all those cosmetics I just bought. You can tell it's not a great feature when you can't even get into an online battle. I can sit there waiting for 5 minutes and then it just throws in a bunch of CPUs. I think some of the features this game had are perfect for evolving the classic Sonic formula, but I just want to see more polish. Like, this game also felt rushed, and I wouldn't even be surprised. Sega seems to just rush out all their Sonic games. I don't think I have anything else to say about this game. I think I'm just gonna head out. This game is giving me a headache.
I believe 2014 is in a couple of weeks.
2014 is only 3 months away.
No, not anymore. 2014 is only like a month away. Like a month and like a week. Oh, 2014, so close. You excited for 2014? What are your New Year's resolutions for 2014?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mine is to play more of my Wii U.
No way. My New Year resolution is to play more of my Nintendo Wii U. Is this true, Carson? You lie.
Yeah.